Welcome back from lunch, everyone. And welcome to David Blaise's presentation, Building Atlantis, How to Create Your Own Personal and Business Paradise. And I certainly think all of us interested in objectivism and admiring of the work of Ayn Rand would really like to be able to find something of the positive vision in Ayn Rand in our own lives and not live in its dystopias. So I'm looking forward to this. And David is really a creative guy, serial entrepreneur. I'm very excited to have him come and speak with us this time. By the time David was 20, he was already a successful radio personality in Reading, PA, where he had grown up. But he felt like, done with that. That's, been there, done that. So he went off to college. Eventually was inspired by losing a job just not long before his wedding that made him think, maybe I ought to start my own companies and therefore be able to, actually have jobs that I can keep, that I want to stay at, too. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put that in a negative light. The jobs that stay with me. So he then went on to a career in which he founded, built, and sold Design House International, a print and promotional products business in the Philadelphia area. He went on to create a company, 800 Trekker, which was a multi-million-dollar mail-order business which sold science fiction collectibles. That's the Trek part. He also bought and sold several other mail-order catalog businesses, including Certainly Stooges, now called Knuckleheads, which specializes in merchandise of the Three Stooges. And he created the nationally recognized Brainstorms catalog. And he's currently co-owner of the consulting firm Blaise, Drake & Company, which helps small business owners and salespeople increase sales, improve profit margins, and grow their businesses on a guaranteed basis. And he's written Sledgehammer Marketing and Top Secrets of Customer Acquisition. So I'd really like to welcome David Blaise.
Thank you, Will. Yeah, and let's hear it for Will for putting it all together this weekend. Thank you very much, Will. It is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for coming. I've been looking forward to this from the time Will said I could come until now, because sharing this topic with me is just, it's a real passion for me, and I hope it will be the same for you. Before we actually get into the slides, I would just like to let you know that if you would like the slides, you'll be able to get them. I'm going to put them up. I've got a Facebook page that I set up specifically for this class, facebook.com/Building Atlantis. Now, don't go there now. The slides are not there because I don't want you to peek ahead of time. But I will put them up there within the next 24 hours. The slides will be available. The reason I tell you this is I don't want you to feel like you have to try to scramble to scribble down what's on the slides. And I hope you'll want to do that, by the way, because everything that I'm going to be talking to you about today are things that you can actually implement in your lives, okay? I'm a big believer in figuring out what to do and then doing it, and if it's wrong, figuring out something else to do and then doing that. So that's what I'm going to encourage you to do here. When it comes to building Atlantis, there are certain things we'll be able to do and certain things we won't be able to do. In terms of what I plan to deliver for you in this particular session, as it said in the abstract, it says, if we can't escape to the idyllic mountain hideaway of Ayn Rand's Atlantis, can we at least bring the core ideals and practices of Atlantis, or Galt's Gulch, into our own lives and businesses? So that's the goal, to bring some of the core ideals and practices of Galt's Gulch into our own lives and businesses. Therefore, when I get to the end of the presentation, please don't get up and say, but wait a second, I still have to pay income tax. Because yes, you will, at the end of this, still have to pay income tax. There are certain areas that I'm not going to be able to help you with in this session. So what we're going to focus on in this session are what Stephen Covey referred to as our circle of influence. Who here is familiar with that concept? I learned it from this guy over here. He learned it from Stephen Covey. But Stephen Covey talks about a circle of influence. And if you were to think of just a circle, if you were to draw a circle and say, okay, inside this circle are the things that I can control. This is my circle of influence, my sphere of influence. Everything outside that circle are the things that I cannot control. Income taxes being an example of that. Okay, now, that being said, there are some people who, within their sphere of influence, will work to lobby to try to reduce income taxes. So if that's your thing, that could very well be within your sphere of influence. It is not in mine. I mean, I sold Three Stooges merchandise, okay? So that is not, the whole working with government thing and trying to get them to do what I want them to do, that's not a specialty of mine. So my area is focusing on those things that we have control over, and that's what I want to help you with. Give you some recommendations on some specific things that you can do to begin to bring some of the elements of Galt's Gulch into your own life. Now, let me ask you a question. I wonder if anyone else has asked this at this session. Who here has read Atlas Shrugged? Hands way up. Okay, all 1,100 some pages. Okay. Who here has not read Atlas Shrugged? Put up your hands. Okay, a few of you. Security? Security? Okay. All right, so most of you understand the concept. Most of you know what the idea is. For those of you who have not read the book, I will give you at least a few spoilers here that will at least allow what I'm about to tell you to make sense. So, and those of you who have read it, well, hopefully this will all perfectly make sense to you right from the beginning. Okay, so when it comes to building Atlantis and how to create your own personal and business paradise, I like to start with the oath, because this is basically, in order to get into Galt's Gulch, anyone who wanted to be a part of that community, and this is a community, for those of you who haven't read the book, where when the people who were productive in society decided to go on strike, they basically went to this place called Galt's Gulch, hidden away in the mountains, okay? And they created their own sort of area where they could regroup and wait for the rest of the world to implode so they could then come back out and get things going again. So that's really the nutshell version of one part of Atlas Shrugged. Okay, so this is the oath. People had to take this oath in order to be admitted to Galt's Gulch. And it goes like this. I swear by my life and my love of it that I will never live for the sake of another man, nor ask another man to live for mine. Now, this is where critics of Ayn Rand say she is selfish. She is selfish and rude and self-centered, and all she thinks about is herself. Don't they say that? Have you ever been accused of being selfish because you actually believed in the concepts of Ayn Rand? Anyone here ever been accused of being selfish? What do you possibly think? How could you be like that? What's wrong with you? Right? That's what they say. Because they don't read. They read the first part. Oh, you're not going to live for anybody else. It's all about you. And they forget about the second part, which is, I'm not going to ask you to live for me either. And that's the part they forget about. Okay, so let's take a look at this oath, shall we? All right, this is what Ayn Rand says. I will never live for the sake of another, and I also will not ask another to live for my sake. So I'm not going to live for you. Sorry, you may be great, but I'm not going to live for you. But I'm also not going to ask you to live for me. That's kind of reciprocal, right? Okay, I won't live for you, you won't live for me, we'll just do our thing. It'll be great. You don't interfere with what I'm doing, I won't interfere with what you're doing, and we'll all get along great. You complete me, it's wonderful, right? So that's Ayn Rand's view. So let's say, okay, Ayn Rand is wrong, and she's selfish and stubborn, and she's influencing people the wrong way. Let's look at the alternatives, because this is basically a no-no scenario. I will not live for the sake of another, nor will I ask another to live for my sake. So that's a no-no. Let's take a look at a yes-yes. What's the opposite of this? Well, the opposite of this is I will live for the sake of others, and I will ask others to live for my sake. I'm going to live entirely for your benefit, and I expect you to live for mine. Does that seem better somehow? I mean, that's also kind of reciprocal, right? I'm going to live for your benefit, and I want you to live for my benefit. And it all works out perfectly fine until what happens is I'm living for your benefit, you're living for my benefit, and then I realize, wait a second, you're already living for my benefit. What if I live for my benefit too? Now there are two of us living for my benefit and no one living for yours. So it's a little hard to enforce. Whereas if I'm living for my own benefit, the likelihood that I'm going to get tired of that at any point is relatively low, I would say. So I don't see that as particularly workable, but that's the opposite of the Ayn Rand philosophy. Now, here's a yes-no scenario. I will live for the sake of others, but I will not ask others to live for my sake. Now, this is the true altruistic approach, right? I will live for your sake entirely, and I will not ask you to live for mine at all. This is total altruism, right? This is what other people want us to aspire to. This is what they want for our lives. This is what they want us to be. So essentially, this approach is I'm going to give and give and give and give until I have nothing to give, and then I'm gone, and that's the end. And essentially, if you are a martyr, if you have a messiah complex, then this is your box. This is where you want to be. The problem is that when you do this, you don't last very long. Because when you give and give and give until you have nothing, at that point you're gone, and then you can't give anymore. And your value to society is diminished rather rapidly. So if you are not an actual Messiah, then this approach probably will not work for you. All right, and then the final approach would be the no yes, which is I will never live for the sake of others, but I will expect others to live for my sake. Now this is the realm of the hedonist, right? I will never live for your sake, but I expect all of you to live for mine. Okay, this is the realm of the megalomaniac. Okay, this is what I want. All you, come, adore me, right? Worship me. Here I am. And this is what's expected. But what's interesting about this would also be the realm of the slave owner, would it not? I will never live for the sake of others, but I expect others to live for my sake. And you look at that and you say, that's awful, right? That is an awful approach to life. But it is also exactly the approach that those who oppose Ayn Rand's philosophies expect. You have money. You're rich. I don't have money. I'm poor. Therefore, you need to live for me, but I'm not going to live for you because you're rich. You're in the 1%. How dare you? How dare you? Right? So I'm saying that I expect you to live in the realm of the altruist. I expect you to give me what I want, but I'm not going to reciprocate. Not only am I not going to reciprocate, it's not even in my idea that I could possibly reciprocate. It's all about you doing what I need because you can, or you should, or I feel you should. I don't feel I should be doing that, but I do feel you should be doing that. And that is the hypocrisy that we deal with every single day. If you believe in the philosophies that you obviously believe in, or you wouldn't be sitting here today. If you believe in these philosophies, then you can understand the problem. So when people talk about Ayn Rand being selfish, now you can say, all right, you know what? Let's look at the alternatives, because here they are. What's the opposite? No, the opposite isn't good. What if we mix it up a bit? Those are pretty much the 4 ways that you can go. It's yes, yes, no, 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 yes, yes, no. That's it. And so there you go. So you decide where you want to be on this continuum, and hopefully this will help you to explain it to others. So as far as the mindset is concerned, Ayn Rand said, my philosophy, in essence, is the concept of man as a heroic being, with his own happiness as the moral purpose of his life, with productive achievement as his noblest activity, and reason as his only absolute. So if our plan, if our intention is to build Atlantis, to create the life and business of our dreams, then we might want to start from here. All right, we want to be heroic in our lives. We want to be heroic in our businesses. We want to have happiness as the moral purpose of our life, productive achievement as our noblest activity, and reason as our absolute. All right, so if we were to do that, take a moment and imagine for a moment that you're going to do this. If your own happiness were truly the moral purpose of your life from this day forward, what would you do differently? Who here thought of a thing or two they might do a little differently? Who here is already doing all of it? Who here just came for a place to sit down? Because I didn't see hands go the way. Okay, Will did. All right. I don't blame you. You coordinated this whole thing. Okay, that's all right. So when you think about this, if your goal is to build the life and business of your dreams, you've got to have a place to start. And so this is a good place. So if your own happiness were truly the moral purpose, what would you do differently? Ask yourself that question. Answer that question. One of the reasons that I wanted to make sure that you have the notes on this is if you are going to write stuff down, I'd like you to write down the actions that you're going to take or the things that you might do differently so that when you walk out of here, you've got a bit of an action plan. All right, if productive achievement were your noblest activity, in what activities would you choose to engage? If you were determined to achieve productively, what would you do? Now, let me ask you this. How many business owners do we have? Anyone here own a business in this room? Okay, quite a few. And how many students? Okay, and how many employees, people who work for someone else? Okay, very good. All of this applies to all of you, okay? Bits and pieces are going to apply differently. But if you think in terms of being a student, if your own happiness was the moral purpose of your life, what would you do, right? And if productive achievement were your noblest activity, in what activities would you choose to engage? If you want to maximize the value you're getting from your education, it becomes pretty obvious what you want to do. If you were an employee, if you were employed by others, you say, well, how can I apply this? You can definitely apply this. You can apply this into your day-to-day life. Now, you're not always going to be able to control exactly what you are able to do or allowed to do within your job, but within the restrictions that you're allowed, you want to ask yourself, what can I do differently to live this better lifestyle? If reason were your only absolute, how would that impact your decisions? Reason being your only absolute. In other words, thinking things through, making decisions based on objective reality, not feelings and wishes and things. And feelings and wishes are fine, they're great, but you want to make your biggest and most important decisions based on what is real? What is the actual, real, live, objective outcome I want to get as a result of taking these actions? Because when you do that, then you can set out a plan. You're saying, okay, here's where I want to be. What do I have to do to get from here to there? And then you can start to organize and arrange the steps in order to make that happen. All right. Clarity when it comes to your mindset is absolutely key. We have to know what the desired outcome is. What do I want it to be? Do I want it to be a happy life because I'm in control of my life and I'm making my own decisions and I'm living life according to my own terms and I'm not going to be made to feel guilty for something that I should not made to be feel guilty about? Whatever your desired outcome is, clarify it for yourself. If you're taking notes, write something down. What's something that I really want? What's a desired outcome I have? If you're an employee and your desired outcome is a promotion within 180 days, write that down, or 6 months, or whatever it is. If you're a business owner and you're looking to get to a certain level of sales, write it down. If you're a student and you've got certain things that you want to accomplish, articulate it, write it down. What is it that I want to have happen in my life? Clarify it for yourself, because clarity is power. Bring the core ideals and practices of Galt's Gulch into our own lives and businesses. And that's really what this session is going to be about. But we're going to look at what those core ideals are, we're going to look at what some of those practices are, and we're going to talk about exactly how you can weave those into your day-to-day life and activities. And building the world we want to live in, consistent with objective reality. Once again, I'll go back to the point I made earlier. The things we do today are not going to impact a lot outside of our circles of influence. But one of the tenets that Stephen Covey talks about in terms of circles of influence is that when you operate within your circle of influence, when you do more and more things that are under your control, your circle of influence expands. And then you can do more things fall into your circle of influence, and you can accomplish more and more and more by yourself. When you are focused outside your circles of influence, complaining about stuff and whining about stuff and saying, that's not right, why do they treat us so bad, all that stuff. You're outside there, and then your circle of influence goes, ooh, this is awful, right? And it just shrinks up. It's just gross. So you don't want to do that. So we build the world we live in. It's consistent with objective reality, which means that we're going to engage in these behaviors, we're going to focus on what we control, but we're going to recognize, okay, listen, it's still not perfect, but we're going to work on those areas that we can control. Objective reality is what it is, but the areas that are under my control are all of a sudden going to get a lot better. Peter Drucker, management guru, said, whenever anything is being accomplished, it is being done, I have learned, by a monomaniac with a mission. A monomaniac, someone who is focused on one particular goal and just won't let go, right? Just won't let go. So if you want to achieve this life that you desire, you got to be a monomaniac on a mission, a monomaniac with a mission. You've got to be bound and determined to make that happen, right? Whatever it is, building a business, graduating from school, advancing within an organization, whatever that is, you've got to focus like a laser on making it happen, because if you get distracted, it's just not going to work. I mean, there's a straight line approach to everything, right? The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And the more we're like weaving around and, oh, what's over here? Oh, I see something shiny. Let's go over here, right? You're missing the boat, and you're missing out on getting to where you want to be sooner. And that's the goal. And we've got a limited amount of time on this planet. We've got to make it count. So let's talk about some of Rand's ground rules, all right? Ayn Rand laid out her foundation of objectivism, and much of this is taken from when somebody asked her, how can you tell us the tenets of objectivism standing on one foot, right? So she said, okay, I'll do that, and she did. And this is kind of what she said. These are not her words, but these are some of her ground rules, okay? It's grounded in reality, all right? What we're doing is grounded in reality. A, is what she said, meaning that what is real is real. A is not B. Feelings are not reality. Ideas are not necessarily reality. So recognizing what is, dealing with what is extremely important. So reality, we want to make sure that what we're doing in terms of building our own Atlantis is totally grounded in reality. It needs to be ruled by reason, which is our ability to think, to engage our brains, and not to just emotionally respond like animals. It's another Stephen Covey point, but Stephen Covey talks about the difference between animals and human beings as being our ability to choose our response. You know, if you've got a cat and you're walking by and the cat's tail sticking out and you accidentally step on that cat's tail, it's going to go, "Ah!" Right? It's not going to think, how shall I react in this situation? Right? It's going to go at you, right? It's going to go for you. As human beings, something happens, somebody bumps into us. We don't have to go, "Hey, what did you do?" Right? Somebody bumps and you go, you know, your brain goes, okay, you want to do that. You want to scratch them, but you don't. So you say, so you go, and they say, "Excuse me," and you go, "Oh, that's all right," and you keep walking, right? So that's our ability to choose our response. And ruled by reason, this is our ability to think. This is where the rubber meets the road. When we refuse to engage our brains, we can get involved in conversations that don't go anywhere. You know, somebody comes up and tells you, "I just finished watching Rachel Maddow, and I have a few things I'd like to talk to you about." That's probably not going to end well. All right, motivated by rational self-interest. All right, so again, the goal, rational self-interest. Ayn Rand, for whatever reason, loved the term selfishness. She sort of flaunted it. Yeah, it's about selfishness, being selfish. I'm not a particular fan of that word because I don't know that it's real. I don't believe really that it accurately describes what we're up against. I believe that that one chart that I showed you, the one about I expect you to live for me, but I'm not going to live for you, I believe that is selfishness from my standpoint. Rational self-interest to me means, first of all, that it's rational, that it's reasonable, there's a reason for it. Without rational self-interest, if I have no self-interest at all, I'm not going to look up and down the street when I walk across, right? And then I'll get hit by a bus, and at that point, my mission is gone, right? So there's not much point in figuring out what you want to do with your life if you don't have enough self-interest to remain alive to do it. So rational self-interest, I think, is essential. Rational self-interest, when we engage in that, also really benefits others. I got into a heated, not too a heated discussion on Facebook. I kind of bailed out on it when I realized that I was not dealing with rationality on the other end. But I got into a discussion on Facebook where somebody was talking about minimum wage laws. And one of my Facebook friends was saying, "Yeah, they're imposing their views on us, and this is terrible, and they shouldn't do that." And my other friend was saying, "Well, yeah, but you know, if there were no minimum wage laws, then employers would want employees to work for free." And the other guy goes, "Oh yeah, like that's really going to happen." And so I'm like, okay, let me try to be the voice of reason in all this. So I get in there and I go, okay, listen, I'm an employer. I've employed a lot of people over the years. I pay my employees more than minimum wage, and I pay for their health care, not because either of those things are required, not because I get thrown in jail if I don't do them, but because it allows me to attract the quality of person that I want to have working in my organization, right? If I wanted to attract minimum wage employees, I would offer minimum wage and I'd say I'm not going to pay health care. It allows me to position myself better than my competition in the workplace. My rational self-interest dictates to me that I should pay these people better, I should treat them well because they're going to come into my business and they're going to help me, right? So my own rational self-interest is not to the detriment of other people, it's to their benefit. It benefits other people because it's beneficial to everyone, and it's beneficial to society because the work that I do with people, when I work with small businesses and I help them grow their businesses, that's advantageous to them. If I said, yeah, I can grow your business and I only employ minimum wage employees and yeah, we'll kind of do what we can, that might not be too compelling. But anyway, so motivated by rational self-interest. Funded and sustained by capitalism. Obviously, everything we're talking about is about capitalism. And the fact that capitalism requires mutual consent, right? Nobody's going to do business with you unless they want to. They have the option. Unless you're selling health care, in which case it will be required that someone buys from you. And that goes away. That decision, that choice then goes away from the market. Governed by free mutual consent, not force. And this is a similar issue, but slightly different. So it's funded and sustained by capitalism. Oh, I should also say, Ayn Rand was a huge fan of laissez-faire capitalism. In other words, unrestricted, unbridled capitalism. Whatever happens in the market happens. That means that if a bank fails, the bank fails. The government doesn't give them a bunch of money and then blame them for taking it. The bank just fails, and then they have to go on from there. So we don't really have laissez-faire capitalism here in this country at the moment. But I'm talking about our version of capitalism because that's what we have right now. So it's funded and sustained by capitalism, governed by free mutual consent. We decide to do business with each other or not. And inspired by beauty and art. I mean, what are we doing it all for? Because we want to have a decent life. We want to enjoy art. We want to travel to nice places. We want to see beautiful things. And so that's kind of the goal. It's probably part of the goal is enjoying life to whatever extent, whatever things help us to enjoy it That's what inspires us. So those are some of Rand's ground rules that we're going to use in helping you to create this life and business of your dreams. Now, Aaron Day did a presentation, webinar, called Galt's Gulch Now. And he described Galt's Gulch as a hidden location where striking men of the mind locate temporarily and operate on the philosophy of rational self-interest. That was his criteria for what defines a Galt's Gulch. All right. So I'm going to take elements of this, and I'm going to lose elements of this, and I'm going to add elements to this, and I'll tell you why I'm doing that as we go along. These are my criteria as far as this session is concerned for meeting the criteria and the core ideals of building Atlantis in your own life. Okay, so a hidden world, and this starts out with Aaron's definition, a hidden location. So our Atlantis is going to be a hidden world, and the way that it's hidden is not hidden away in the mountains. It's hidden in that nobody's going to know about it until and unless we tell them about it. What we are doing is our own little secret. We can tell whomever we want, and we cannot tell whomever we want. So from that standpoint, it's a hidden world. Nobody else has to know what you're doing. I added not easy to access, because in Atlas Shrugged, Galt's Gulch was not easy to access. They blocked off all the roads. They had the camouflage so that if you were flying in with a plane, you'd be convinced you were going to crash. So they made it very hard to access. And in building Atlantis for ourselves, we want to make our hidden world difficult to access. Well, difficult for the looters and the moochers to access. Looters and moochers being a favored term of Ayn Rand's to describe people who want to take what is yours, your money, your property, whatever it is. The distinction that Rand makes between looters and moochers is that a looter wants to take your stuff by force. So if I come up to you in a subway and I've got a gun and I stick the gun in your ribs and I say, "Give me all your money," right? I'm a looter. I'm taking that money from you directly at the threat of force. So that's a looter. If the government comes to you and says, "Give me all your money," and I'm going to give it to somebody else, it's still a looter, because if you don't give me your money, then I'm going to apply force, throw you in jail, or whatever it is that I'm going to do to you. So that's the looter mindset. The moocher mindset, as defined by Rand, is the person who tries to get your stuff from you out of guilt. I'm poor, I really don't have any money, I really need money, you should really give more of your income so that I can have more of your money. Okay, so it's the sort of, the begging approach, that's the panhandler approach. So those are the looters and the moochers. That's pretty much who we're going to want to try to limit access. Locate temporarily, and Aaron's definition, because in Atlas Shrugged, the strikers only located to Atlantis or to Galt's Gulch for a limited time. I'm going to scratch that one off, all right? Located temporarily, because I'm not particularly hopeful that we're going to be able to bring about Atlantis in the real world within our lifetimes. Okay, so we may have to locate here permanently, or at least for a long time. Now, if I'm wrong, and if things change dramatically, then maybe we can just locate here temporarily. But ideally, we want to build the life and business of our dreams for as long as we live, right? So I'm going to take out the temporarily aspect of it. Filled with striking men of the mind, and of course, this is 1950s language, so striking people of the mind, striking men and women of the mind. The thing I like about this line, striking, first of all, having two meanings. Striking, being on strike. Okay, look, I'm done working for you people, all right? I've been working for you people all my life. I'm going to work for myself for a while. I'm on strike. That's one definition of striking. Striking is also something that attracts your attention because it's like, wow, cool or unusual. You're striking. You're absolutely striking, right? Striking men of the minds. I mean, striking people that just impress you. You go, wow, that's impressive. That's striking. So it's filled with striking people of the mind. And it's operated on the philosophy of rational self-interest, which we've already talked about. I won't beat you over the head with that anymore. But it's operated on this philosophy. And it's by invitation only. So I'm adding this element to it. Aaron didn't mention this in his presentation, but it's by invitation only. In Galt's Gulch, you only came in by invitation or by crash landing a plane, as Dagny did, right? Those are the only two ways in. So, sorry, spoiler alert. Sorry. Disregard the plane crash. The jury will disregard the plane crash remark. So it's by invitation only. The only way that you get in is by invitation and by taking the oath, right? Okay. And only value producers. No looters, no moochers allowed. In Galt's Gulch, there weren't people begging for handouts, right? It just wasn't happening. And within our version of Atlantis, presumably we want that to happen as well. All right, so let's talk about some of the core practices then. Everyone should create and contribute value. That needs to happen. No handouts are taken or expected. There's a part in Atlas Shrugged where John Galt needs a car, and instead of borrowing a car, he pays, who did he pay to rent the car? Midas Mulligan, right? He paid him a quarter, right? He paid him 25 cents to rent his car. It's like, well, why didn't he just do it for free? Because that's not the way they work there, right? It's about exchanging value. So no handouts are taken or expected. Positive interaction. This is big. Now, those of you who read it, which is most of this room, like when you got through the first 2/3 of Atlas Shrugged, it's like, oh, come on, this is brutal, right? And then you get to part 3 and it's like, sunlight, right? Did anyone else feel that way? It's like, yeah, this feels good now, all right? So she lands there, and who else thought, like, please don't ever leave here? Did anyone else think that as you're reading it? Please don't ever leave. I did. Did the rest of you want her to leave? No, please, let's go back to that awful, okay, well, maybe you did. Who here doesn't know how to put up their hands, really? Okay. All right, very good. Yeah, just him. Okay. So positive interaction. So he's in an environment, you're in an environment where people are interacting positively and actually like being around each other. Imagine that, an environment where you like being around each other. Now in a business, like in my business, over the years, as Will mentioned, I've operated many businesses, I've hired a lot of people, and right now the business that I have has 4 people. And it's people that I've been working with for a very, very long time, and it's because they're the people that I wanted to have back, right? The true value producers. We have positive interaction, and it works out really well. There are other people that I've worked with that I wouldn't mind having back as well, but there are a lot that I would never hire back again in a million years. So you get to create your environment. Now, if you're not the employer, you might not be able to do that, but as an employee, you can decide who you're going to interact with on your lunch break. You can decide who you're going to interact with before work and after work. You can decide whose stuff you're going to listen to and whose stuff you're going to ignore. And give them the hand. Nope, sorry, don't want to hear that. And that's how it goes. Invitations are rare. We want to keep invitations rare. When John Galt went out into the world to solicit people to come back to Galt's Gulch, he wasn't just taking anybody. He was very, very selective. Right? Of all the millions of people in the world, he brought back, what, a couple dozen? We want to be selective as well, based on the people that we actually want to have in our lives. Individuals building a community committed to rational self-interest. Starting off with the individual, okay? These are individuals that built a community of individuals dedicated to rational self-interest. It's not about the community. It's not about us. It's not a commune. I think Gulch is about as far from a commune as you could possibly get. But it's individuals building a community that is committed to rational self-interest. Does that sound good to anybody in this room? All right, some of the hands do work. Good. All right, that's very good. So rational self-interest, if you want to think about it, begins with identifying your key desires. If you want to engage in your own rational self-interest, it begins with your key desires. So what are they? You have to know what you want in order to get what you want. If you don't know it, you can't get it. And this basically happens because everything that we ever want to create in our lives has to be created first mentally. We have to have an idea for something. I would like to buy a car. I would like it to be a red car with 2 doors and spoilers, and it's a Mustang, right? So you kind of have to go through the mental exercise first, then you can go to the car dealer and start looking for it. If you want to build a house, you've got to have a blueprint first. You don't just start banging boards together, as Anthony Robbins once said. So you have to know what you want physically. What do you want with yourself? What do you want for yourself, for your life physically? Do you want to weigh 10 pounds less? Do you want to weigh 10 pounds more? Do you want to be muscular? You want to beef up? What do you want for yourself physically? If we never take the time to think about it, we'll just sort of end up what we are, which is kind of where I am right now. So I guess I don't practice every aspect of it. Okay, but I'm working on it. All right, mentally. Knowing what I want to get mentally. What do I want to read? What do I want to study? What do I want to learn about? Who do I want to interact with and have stimulating conversations with? Deciding what we want to do, what we want our lives to be mentally, then we can take actions to make it happen. Emotionally, how do I want to be emotionally? Do I want to be an emotional wreck, right? Or do I want to be emotionally stable? Do I want to feel good a lot? Do I want to actually feel good most of the time? Because if I do, that's going to be a direct function of my actions and my activities and the people that I interact with, and that's what this whole session is about, creating that personal and business paradise. Family, what do I want for my family? Do I want a family at some point? And what's that look like? And when is that going to happen? And where do I want to live? Thinking and planning these types of things for what you think you'd like to have. Now, that's subject to change. I mean, that could change 2 weeks from now, but just right now, what do you want? And I'd suggest jotting it down. Financially, what do I want financially? How much money do I want to have in the bank? What do I want to earn on an annual basis, weekly basis, monthly basis? What do I want to have as far as things? What kind of house do I want to live in? What kind of stuff do I want to have in that house? It's all financial related stuff. And socially, who are the people that I want to interact with? Who are the people that I no longer want to interact with? And who are the people that I really need to limit access, or at least limit conversation? Who here has a friend or family member that you love to death, but you just can't talk politics? Raise your hand. Okay, more hands are working now. Okay, yeah, that's how it works. You got to steer away from those conversations, because what ends up happening is you end up losing respect for people that you otherwise care about, and that's hard. What's harder is to try to convince them or persuade them to think the way that we do. Here's an analogy. It's better to preach to the choir than to try to convert the heathens, right? So in this version of Galt's Gulch, you want to interact with people who are already there where you are so that you can have the kind of conversations that we've been having here at this summit to try to convince them. Now, there are some people that could potentially be persuaded, but you'll know pretty quickly who they are. Mark Twain said, I can teach anybody how to get what they want out of life. Problem is, I can't find anybody who can tell me what they want. So that's why identifying your key desires is so important. You've got to know what it is. Take the time to write it down. What does that house look like? How many bedrooms does it have? How many bathrooms does it have? It's got 7 different shower heads that point in all directions, right? Think about it. With a view of the ocean, I stand naked before the world. Whatever it is. It's your thing. You do what you want to do. You can plan it out. Now, what if you only end up with 5 shower heads? Then your life's a failure. It's too bad. All right, so redesigning your life and your business. How do we do it? Well, first we create mental distance between ourselves and the moochers and the looters. Okay, we've got to create mental distance between ourselves and the moochers and the looters. So we're basically saying, okay, you know what? That is not me. I'm over here, they're over there. Mentally, we just don't go there. Create that mental distance. Deny physical access to looters and moochers whenever possible. All right? So if you have a chance to not interact with them physically, just don't do it. If you've been audited, and that's not an option, you have to interact with them physically, then limit access at all other times. All right, okay, yeah, come on in, here's what you need, whatever. Let me know if you need anything else, right? Limit access. Be vigilant when selecting the people with whom you will surround yourself. I would circle that one, but I'd get marker all over the screen. But that's extremely important. Selecting the people that we're going to interact with is going to be key to determining how happy we are in our lives. Seek out fellow value producers and establish relationships with them. And that's why you're here, isn't it? Seek out fellow value producers and establish relationships with them. Chances are you will meet people here at this event that you will want to continue to interact with, at least for a little while, until this wears off and you're back out in the land of the moochers and you go, what did he say again about building Atlantis? And that's why I'm going to make sure you have access to the notes so you don't forget it. Also, at that Facebook page, you're welcome to interact with each other and exchange ideas and add stuff to it, because I think this is the kind of conversation, ideally, that you want to keep going beyond the narrow constraints of the time that we have available together. All right, we need to create our daily environment proactively. What do we want our daily environment to look like? As Will told you, I've been a Star Trek fan for a long time, so those of you who at least have some understanding of Star Trek will understand the reference. The rest, I'll explain it for you. But I like to organize my office like Commander Sulu's command console, right? So everything is within reach. Sulu was the guy who flew the starship on Star Trek, right? So he had access to everything. If he had to turn left, he could turn left. If he had to turn right, if he wanted to go faster, right, do something over here. Here's the gear shift. It's like driving a car, I guess, but flying a spaceship. So having all your stuff there, all right? I've got my computer, I've got my phone, I've got my shredder. Now, my shredder, I believe, is connected directly to the NSA, so it's actually scanned in and sent over before it gets shredded. But I expect that. So I've got my little environment there, and it's all set up, suited to do what I want to do, right? So you're creating your own environment. Can you do that? Yes or no? Shout it out. Yes. You can, absolutely. Yes, we, oh, no, not yes, we can. No, not that. Not that. Oh. I almost said that. Oh, boy. What does it look like? What is your creating your daily environment proactively, what does it look like? What does your environment look like? What does what you're doing look like? Who or what lives in your daily environment? Who's allowed in, who's no longer allowed in, right? Moochers and looters, sorry, you put a little sign on your door. No moochers and looters allowed. Sorry, go away. But you get to decide because it's your life. Within whatever restrictions are imposed upon you by society, you still get to decide who you interact with. Now, you may be forced to interact with somebody, but you might not have to say anything. You can just go. Yeah. All right, what about it makes you feel fantastic? Something in your daily environment better make you feel fantastic, or you have not created your daily environment properly. Surround yourself with things you like. If you look at something, you go, wow, that's cool. That picture over there, I hung up that picture for a reason. I love that picture. I have actually never seen that picture before in my life. But let's say that were your thing. That would be your picture, okay? And if it makes you feel fantastic, then look at it from time to time and incorporate that into your Commander Sulu consulting every night. Oh, yeah, that's cool. Picture of a vacation you were on or something. You go, yeah, you know what? I'm going back there. Create this environment for yourself. How does it operate? How does your daily environment operate? What has to be done? And don't think of it in terms of what do I have to do. Think of what has to be done. Because then the second part of that could also be, who else could do this, right? Who can I get in here to do this? Don't feel, particularly if you're a business owner, you're going to be tempted to say, oh, I have to do it all myself. No, you don't. Decide what can be delegated and delegated. That's what I help a lot of my clients with. All right, what are the rules? What are the rules in my daily environment? Welcome to Dave's world. All right, this is Dave's world. You see this, the end of this is Dave's world. Once you come in here, it's my rules. Now, you're not going to actually say that out loud, but you can at least think it to yourself, and you can control your environment to some extent. What needs to be physically present to make it real for you? What are the specific physical things that you need to have around you to make it real, to say, yeah, this is it? Maybe it's a little statue of Atlas with a globe on his shoulder, and it looks at you every day and goes, what are you doing, man? I'm holding up the world. Could you please do something productive today? That wouldn't be bad. And maybe that'll make it real for you. All right, so let's talk about controlling the big ape. We can't control time, but we can control what we do within the constraints of time. I was talking about this at a presentation that I was doing a while ago, and this woman said, yeah, you know what, if I could control the big ape here, I'd have it made. I'm like, no, I'm not talking about your spouse. That is not what the big ape is. The big ape is an acronym, which is why there are little dots between the three letters. The big ape stands for activities, priorities, and expectations. These are the things that are within our circle of influence. I get to decide within reason, if I'm an employee, what my activities are going to be. I get to decide which of those activities I'm going to do first, and second, and third, and not at all, maybe, to some extent. But I get to decide my priorities. And I get to decide my expectations. Who here has a to-do list that has like 30 items on it? Raise your hand. Okay, do you really expect to get all that done in a day? No, probably not. Maybe the thing to do is to say, okay, I've got that over here. Now I'm going to transfer that to my mini to-do list, which only has 3 things on it. And these are the 3 most important things that if I only get one of them done, I'm still going to consider today to be a success, right? That's all within our power. We get to decide to do that. So if I only got one thing done today, but it was the most important thing that could advance my agenda as much as possible, what I want to have happen, then that day is a success. If I did 17 things that don't move the needle at all, I go, oh man, I'm exhausted. I did a whole lot and I don't feel like I've accomplished anything. And it's because we're not managing our activities and our priorities and our expectations. Right? So these are the areas in which we want to focus. What are the activities I'm going to focus in on a daily basis? How am I going to prioritize that as far as 1, 2, 3, what goes first, second, and third? And what am I going to expect? What am I going to expect of myself? What am I going to expect of the people that I have allowed into my life? And what happens if they don't do it? Right? There've got to be consequences. There've always got to be consequences. All right. So let's talk about how to get started immediately. Because when is the best time to start this? That's right. How did you know that? That's not in the notes. Good, good. You knew that. Yeah, right. I could start at 3 months from now, but that means I will have 3 months where I am not enjoying the benefits of this. Right? Creating our own personal and business paradise, best time to start is right now. Okay, so we want to begin from wherever we are. And I love this. There's this one particular part of the book where Dagny has decided that she's going to, well, not really sacrifice herself because that's not in her nature. But what she's going to do is she's going to go off and she's going to build the John Galt line separately and apart from Taggart Transcontinental, right? So her new headquarters were 2 rooms on the ground floor of a half-collapsed structure. Now, this is a woman who had some money, right? She could have set up a pretty nice deal for herself. This is what she did. She was beginning from where she was. New headquarters, 2 rooms, ground floor, half-collapsed structure. You want to create the environment that you need. Maybe not necessarily the one that you want, the perfect thing right now, but create what you need. The rooms contain no superfluous furniture or people. The furniture had come from junk shops. She's like, okay, you want to sit down? Have a seat in the stained couch. I'll be right with you, right? Because that was not important to what she wanted to do. The fact that it looked beautiful and pretty didn't matter. She was there to create a railroad, right? Surround yourself with the best people. It said the people were the choice best she could find. Even in those dilapidated circumstances, she found the best people. If you have limited money to invest, you want to invest it in the right people, the people that are going to help to advance your agenda and help you to build your own version of Atlantis. You want to focus on only the things that matter. On her rare visits to New York, she had no time to notice the room where she worked. She noticed only that it served its purpose. That is the function of our surroundings. The immediate function of our surroundings is to serve its purpose. And our purpose being what? Building Atlantis, creating the life and the job and the business of our dreams. So this is how we get started immediately. We start from where we are. Okay, taking it with you when you go. Now, the sad fact of the matter is that tomorrow, this conference is over. All right? At that point, you must go out, you must go forth from Atlantis and back into the real world. And you have to start interacting regularly again with the looters and the moochers. So here are some points on taking this concept with you when you go. First, focus every day on building Atlantis in your own life and business. When you wake up in the morning, ask yourself, what am I going to do today? How am I going to focus today on building my version of Galt's Gulch for myself in my own life and business? Never allow the looters to determine your focus, the looters or the moochers. They cannot determine your focus. Excuse me, I got a problem. No. Give them the hand, all right? Now, there are certain times, there are certain situations where you're going to have to interact at some point. Make it as quick as possible. But don't allow them to determine your focus. Don't go down the rabbit hole. If you get distracted and somebody gets you thinking about all the bad things that are going on out there in the world, rip yourself away from it. Just refocus. Don't allow them to determine what you think about. Your brain, getting back to that idea, we have the ability to choose our response. Your brain is under your control. Don't let anybody steal that from you. Recruit and reward the best and the brightest. If you are an employer, obviously you want to recruit the best and the brightest. In terms of choosing friends and the friends that you're going to interact with, choose the best and the brightest. One of the best things on Facebook, aside from the unfriend button, is the don't show in newsfeed button. You just uncheck show in newsfeed and you don't have to look at that stuff. Who has friends on Facebook that post things that just make your hair curl in the morning? Does anyone? Yeah, and it's like, you know what? You uncheck that button that says show in newsfeed. Now you don't have to see it. They don't know that you're not looking at what their pearls of wisdom for the day. They don't know that you're not seeing that anymore. So you can still be friends, but you don't have to have that imposed on your psyche. Ugh. All right. Create a Galt's Gulch oasis around you. Creating an oasis around you. It's my bubble, man. I got my bubble. Don't enter my bubble unless you're allowed in. And you create this oasis or this bubble through your mindset, what you decide to think about all day, what you decide to focus on all day, through your environment, the environment that you have created for yourself proactively based on your values, your ideals, your systems, and your activities, your priorities, and your expectations. What you do every day, the order in which you do those things, and what you expect of yourself and what you expect from the people around you. This is how you take it with you. When you expand your personal space, you keep growing that bubble, you keep growing out that personal oasis, and you allow access only to those you select, and that is how you start building Atlantis.
Okay.
There we go.
I like this lecture a lot because you seem to view Atlas Shrugged the same way I view it, as a wonderful 1,000-page self-help book.
Yeah.
That being said, I can very much see myself taking this back to my home and showing it to the people that don't understand Atlas Shrugged, that still provide me the funds to live my life and really don't know what I'm doing here, also known as my parents. But my question is, I find when I'm introducing objectivism and Atlas Shrugged into other people's lives, they understand all of this that you presented, but what they don't understand is how relationships and the bonds we form with other people fit into our lives. And I really like the way you presented objectivism in this way. So I'm wondering what your take would be on how to present that aspect.
Okay, and by the relationships, you mean, what part of what relationships don't they understand?
I guess I have a lot of people that just don't understand how you can be selfish or self-interested in relationships, and I'm wondering how you would explain that
Okay,
to others.
I would start by saying sort of the analogy of the bus. Look, if every human being has to have a certain level of rational self-interest, otherwise they're dead, right? And if you can't be interested at least in yourself first, you can't be interested in somebody else. If I don't care about myself, I'm not going to take care of myself, right? And I'm going to look like crap. And so if I say, hey, you're really pretty, right? I go, oh, I'm really pretty, that relationship is never going to happen. So it all starts with rational self-interest, just starting with the fact that I've got to be a certain kind of human being to be able to attract the other types of human beings that I want to have in my life. And very often the kind of people who ask you that question are not the kind of people who you might necessarily want to have to interact with on an ongoing basis. But I would say it starts with that. And it's not about, and I think the key to it is what we started out with on that grid. It's saying, okay, listen, rational self-interest means, yeah, I'm not going to live my life for you and expect you to live for me. I'm saying, look, I don't want you to have to live for me, therefore I'm going to live for me, and you can live for you, and we can live happily together, and we can do fun things together, and we can interact together, but I'm a much better person when I at least take some personal responsibility. How's that? Does that work? Yeah. Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Come on, yes?
This was so tightly organized and delivered in such a lively style. Really wonderful
Thank you.
lecture or
Thank you,
talk.
I appreciate it.
Enjoyed that a lot.
Well, as you can tell, I'm slightly passionate about the subject. I hope that came through.
It's a good thing that you're not shy. So
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true.
it's too bad that you're so shy.
Yeah, right.
That's what I meant to
I'm an
say.
introvert. What can I tell you?
Would you elaborate on how you personally keep yourself in the Gulch, out of the shadows? I mean, in the shadows. How did you put this? Not easy access.
Okay.
Avoiding access to the looters and the moochers. And oh my God, I think I just asked how to avoid the income tax.
Okay. I have absolutely no advice on how you can avoid income tax, but I'm sure there are tax planners who can help you with all legal remedies available. What I can tell you is, as far as my approach to it, in my business, I do a lot of work, consulting work with printers and promotional people in the promotional products industry. There are some people in that industry who really appreciate the value that we can bring to the table and how we can help them grow their businesses and their sales and their profits. And those people who come and say, listen, I want to do this, I want to work with you, I would like to pay to work with you, those are the types of people that are allowed into my bubble, all right? There are other people who get access on my websites. I have some free material available, and there's some people who will milk my free material from now until doomsday and never buy anything. Now, they are welcome to have the free things that I have out there, but they're not really in the bubble at that point. They're getting certain bits of information so that they can feel fine about me, but I don't have to invest my life and my time and my energy on whatever it is they're doing because it doesn't impact my daily life. So that's one example of it. Another example of it, as I mentioned, are the people that I work with in my office. I mean, if somebody comes in and their mindset is not right, they are gone. I remember being at a meeting one time when I had my catalog business, and we had a bunch of our customer service people around, and around the holidays we had to bring in a lot of people because we'd have a lot of business. And we were having this meeting, we were talking about stuff, and of course I'm all fired up about what we're doing, and there's this one person, she was sitting at the meeting and she was looking at me like, I hate this place, right? She was sitting there, and I was getting this look, and as I was talking to everybody, I was thinking, and I saw that look, and I'm thinking, you are so out of here when this meeting is over. And I just kept going, right? We went right through the thing, and then after the meeting, I said, hey, Jen, can I see you? And she said, yeah, and she came into my office. I said, hey, sit down. I said, listen, at the meeting, I could tell you're really not into this, are you? She said, no, I'm really not into this. This is no longer for you, isn't it? I said, okay. So I gave her a little piece of paper that could sign where she said that she was quitting. And she quit, and then at that point, she was finished, and I didn't fire her or let her go, so we did not have to pay unemployment because it was her decision. Okay? But she wanted to go, so I didn't say, hey, look, you looked at me funny and I didn't like that and you're fired, right? What I said instead is, you don't like it here, you're not happy here, right? Hey, if you're not happy here, don't be here. Yeah, okay, I think you're right. Boop, boop, boop. There you go. Bye-bye. 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 Thanks for coming. Bye-bye. 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 Yeah. Yes, next question.
My name is Marcel.
Hey, Marcel.
I am from Brazil, and I live now in the Netherlands, where I started a business.
Nice.
And a consulting firm. So what was very interesting to see was this monomaniac mission,
Yeah.
Monomaniac with a mission,
Yes.
with truckers. And I think this is what is really concerns young people many times, because I myself, I started a business after doing several different things before, and I like several different things.
Mm-hmm.
So how to be a monomaniac with a mission when the world offers so many opportunities and you believe that you are talented for many other things than just what you are doing?
Yeah. There are, as an entrepreneur, many people that I work with, myself included, we suffer from entrepreneurial ADD, all right? It's like, ooh, what's that? I think I should do that. Maybe I could sell those. Look at that. That's cool. I could sell a ton of those, right? And so then we're off on another thing. What we need to do, that's where it comes down to our priorities, prioritizing. Okay, what can I be? There's a great book. It's called Good to Great. Are you familiar with that book? It's called Good to Great by Collins. I can't think of his first name. What's his first name? I don't know. Anyway, it's called Good to Great. And one of the concepts in Good to Great, he has something he calls the hedgehog theory. And it's 3 interconnected circles. And it basically asks 3 questions. It says, and let's see if I can remember this off the top of my head. I should never start something I can't finish. But anyway, it starts with what drives your, or what can you be the best in the world at? That's the first circle. What can I be the best in the world at? The second thing is, what are you extremely passionate about? All right? And then the third thing is, what drives my economic engine? In other words, what will pay for itself? And at the intersection of those 3 circles is the answer to your question. What am I extremely passionate about? What can I be the best in the world at? And what drives my economic engine? When you find things that accomplish those 3 things, then you got it.
Hi, my name is Rosa, and
Hi, Rosa.
thank you for the excellent presentation. What words of wisdom would you have for someone who has been taken pretty good by the mushers and the option of removing those mushers from your life? It's not there. You just cannot. They are part of your life whether you want it or not.
Family, huh, Rosa? Okay, you don't have to answer that question. We're being videotaped. All right. Okay. Hank Rearden. You read Atlas Shrugged?
Haven't finished.
Okay. Hank Rearden had a wife not particularly supportive of his particular lifestyle. Is that fair to say? All right. Okay. He had a brother, same way. He had a mother, same way. There were very few people in his circle who understood him. What he ended up doing is he ended up interacting far less with them and interacting far more with the people who empowered him, who enriched him. Within our lives, there are going to be people that will have that effect, or that will attempt to have that effect on us. What we need to do is we need to minimize contact in that aspect of the relationship. Just don't have those conversations. If they disempower you, you can't have them. Hey, look, sweetie, I'll talk to you about anything, but let's just not go there. I mean, I think about James Carville and Mary Madeline being married, right? There they are on TV, and he's, really liberal, and she's really conservative, and yet somehow they're married, and they have 2 children, and presumably they're fairly happy together. I don't imagine they go to bed at night talking about politics.
Is it safe to say that you could never recoup what a musher or a looter would have taken from you?
You can't recoup it. I think it's probably not wise to try. I think it's better to click the clear button on your mental calculator and say, starting today, I'm building Atlantis and I'm moving forward. Sure, thank you.
Fortunately, that had to be our last question.
Oh, he just made it to the microphone. Can we squeak in one more quickie, Will?
Well, we're actually over 2 minutes because your moderator got distracted.
Okay, all right.
This is quick.
David, sorry.
I'm 80 years old, and I've been involved in the last 12 years in publishing and researching and publishing books. Now I'm in the mode of thinking my way through my bucket list.
Okay.
And a lot of what you've said here applies to that.
Well, great. Good. Well, thank you. I hope we do a good job putting together your bucket list. Awesome. I really appreciate your coming. I just want to close with one final thought from Ayn Rand. The question at this point isn't who's going to let me, it's who's going to stop me. And I hope you never find out the answer to that question. Thank you very much.